The HSS Sovereign tore through the fabric of space like a bullet through silk. One moment there was nothing but empty darkness between the stars. The next moment, a ship appeared. It was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long, built from gray metal and covered in weapons that no species in the galaxy had ever seen before. Captain Park stood on the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair cut short. She had served in Earth's Navy for 30 years before they gave her this ship. Now she was leading humanity's first journey beyond their home system. "Report," she said. Her voice was calm like still water. Lieutenant Commander looked up from his tactical display. He was younger than the captain, with a serious face and quick hands that moved across the controls without hesitation. "We have arrived at the designated coordinates, Captain, but there is a problem." "Show me." The main screen flickered to life. What saw made her blood run cold. Ships, hundreds of ships. They filled the space ahead like a swarm of angry insects. Some were long and elegant, made of white metal that reflected starlight. Others were dark and brutal, covered in spikes and heavy armor. They were fighting. Beams of energy crossed the void between them. Explosions bloomed in silence. "We jumped into a war zone," said. Dr. Lee rushed to her station. She was the ship's chief scientist, a woman with gentle eyes and a brilliant mind. Her fingers flew across her console as she tried to make sense of what they were seeing. "Captain, I am picking up communications from both sides. The white ships are sending distress signals. They are calling themselves the Galactic Conquered, the Dark Ships. They call themselves the Hegemony." "What are they fighting about?" asked. "From what I can translate, the Hegemony wants to conquer. The Conquered is trying to protect refugee vessels," pointed at the screen. "There, those large transport ships in the center, they are carrying civilians, thousands of them, families, children." Watched as a Hegemony warship fired a massive beam at one of the transports. The transport's shields flickered and died. Another hit would destroy it completely. "Captain said, the conquered fleet is losing. They will be destroyed within the hour. The refugees will not survive." The bridge fell silent. Everyone looked at. They all knew what she was thinking. Their orders were clear: observe and report. Do not engage with alien species. Do not reveal humanity's capabilities. Earth's leaders wanted to study the galaxy before making contact. But those were civilians out there, innocent people dying while the Sovereign watched. Engineer spoke up from her station. She was a tall woman with oil-stained hands and a voice that carried across any room. "Captain, all systems are operational. Weapons are ready. Shields are at full power. If you want to fight, we can fight." Sergeant Minu stepped forward. He was the head of the ship's marine forces, a man built like a mountain with a face that had seen too many battles. "My soldiers are ready, Captain. Say the word." Closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about Earth. She thought about all the wars humanity had fought against itself, all the blood they had spilled, all the lessons they had learned. They had almost destroyed themselves so many times. Nuclear weapons, climate change, disease, but they had survived. They had learned that the only way forward was to protect each other. Now they were among the stars, and innocent people were dying. She opened her eyes. "We intervene," she said. Did not hesitate. "Understood, Captain, plotting intercept course." The Sovereign turned toward the battle. Its engines burned bright, pushing the massive ship forward at speeds that should have been impossible. On the screens, the Hegemony ships noticed them. They had never seen anything like the Sovereign. It did not match any known design. It moved wrong. It looked wrong. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the strange ship approach. He was a creature of hard scales and cold eyes, bred for war and conquest. He had destroyed 100 worlds. He feared nothing. But something about this ship made him uneasy. "What is that?" he demanded. His officers had no answer. "Destroy it," ordered. "Whatever it is, it dies today." 12 Hegemony warships broke formation and moved to intercept the Sovereign. They were each 500 meters long, covered in heavy armor and armed with energy cannons that could crack a planet's crust. On the Sovereign's bridge, alarms began to sound. 12 enemy ships approaching, reported. They are charging weapons. "Shields up," ordered. "Prepare all weapon systems." Dr. Lee looked worried. "Captain, we do not know what their weapons can do. We have never faced alien technology before." "Then we will learn," replied. "Today we learn everything." The Hegemony ships fired. 12 beams of purple energy crossed the void and struck the Sovereign's shields. The ship shook, lights flickered, but the shields held. Laughed from her station. They use pure energy weapons. Our shields eat energy for breakfast. They cannot hurt us. Allowed herself a small smile. Show them what human weapons look like. Pressed a button. With pleasure, Captain. The Sovereign's weapons came alive. They were not elegant. They were not graceful. They were brutal and simple and absolutely deadly. The main guns were magnetic accelerators. They fired solid metal slugs the size of cars at 1% the speed of light. The slugs did not glow. They did not make sound. They simply crossed the distance between ships in the blink of an eye and hit their targets with the force of nuclear bombs. The first hegemony ship did not have time to react. The slug punched through its shields like they did not exist. It tore through the armor. It came out the other side. The ship exploded. The second ship tried to turn away. Another slug caught it in the engines. It spun wildly before breaking apart. The third and fourth ships died together, struck by a spread of smaller projectiles that tore them into pieces. In less than 30 seconds, 4 hegemony warships were destroyed. Admiral watched in horror. His ships had shields that could stop any energy weapon. His armor could survive any known attack. But these humans, they were not using energy. They were throwing rocks. Simple, brutal, unstoppable rocks. And they were throwing them very, very fast. All ships, he screamed into his communicator. Focus fire on that vessel. Destroy it now. But it was too late. The Sovereign was already among them, and it was not done killing. On the bridge, Captain Park watched the battle unfold. Her face showed no emotion, but her heart was beating fast. They had crossed a line today. There was no going back. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy. And the galaxy would never be the same. The battle had become a slaughter. The Sovereign moved through the hegemony fleet like a wolf among sheep. Its guns never stopped firing. Metal slugs crossed the void and found their targets with terrible accuracy. Hegemony ships that had conquered 1,000 worlds died in seconds, their shields useless against simple physics. Worked his console with cold efficiency. Each press of a button meant another enemy ship destroyed. He did not enjoy killing. No one on the bridge did. But the refugees needed protection, and the hegemony had made their choice when they attacked civilians. Enemy cruiser at bearing 270, he announced. Firing. The magnetic accelerator hummed. A slug the size of a small car launched from the Sovereign's side. It covered the distance in a heartbeat. The hegemony cruiser tried to turn, tried to run, but physics did not care about fear. The slug hit the ship's reactor. There was a flash of light, and then nothing remained but scattered metal and frozen bodies. Captain Park watched the destruction on her screen. Her face was stone, but her hands were shaking slightly behind her back. She had fought in wars before, she had killed before, but never like this. Never so quickly, never so completely. How many? She asked quietly. 23 enemy ships destroyed, replied. 20 more damaged. The hegemony fleet is breaking formation. Dr. Lee looked up from her station. Captain, I am receiving transmissions from the hegemony ships. They are confused. They do not understand how we are hurting them. Their commanders are screaming for explanations. They have never fought kinetic weapons before, said from engineering. Her voice carried a grim satisfaction. Their entire military doctrine is based on energy weapons and energy shields. They never thought to protect against something as simple as a fast-moving rock. Admiral stood on his flagship's bridge, surrounded by chaos. Officers shouted reports that made no sense. Ships under his command were dying by the dozens, and he could not understand why. His shields were at full power. His armor was the strongest in the galaxy, but these humans ignored both. What are they using? He demanded. What weapon can do this? A young officer looked up with terror in his eyes. Sir, they are not using energy weapons. They are firing physical projectiles. Solid matter accelerated to extreme speeds. Stared at him. That is primitive. That is something savages would use. Yes, sir, but our shields are designed to absorb energy, not matter. The projectiles pass through without slowing down. The flagship shook as another nearby ship exploded, gripped his command chair, and made a decision that burned like acid in his throat. All ships retreat, he ordered. Fall back to the secondary fleet. The hegemony ships began to run. They had come to slaughter refugees. Instead, they had found something far worse. They had found humans. On the Sovereign, cheers erupted across the bridge, but did not celebrate. "Cease fire," she ordered. "Let them go." Looked at her with surprise. "Captain, we could destroy their entire fleet. They would never threaten anyone again." "We are not executioners," said firmly. "We came to protect the refugees, not to commit genocide. They are running. Let them run." The guns fell silent. The surviving hegemony ships fled into hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of 43 destroyed vessels. The battle had lasted 17 minutes. Sergeant Minu was already moving. "Captain, permission to launch rescue operations. The conquered ships are badly damaged. They need help." "Granted, take your teams. Save everyone you can." Minu ran to the shuttle bay. Within minutes, he and his Marines were crossing the void between ships. They found the conquered vessels in terrible condition. Hulls were breached, life support was failing, but people were still alive. The first ship Minu boarded was a transport carrying refugees. The interior was dark and cold. Emergency lights flickered red. He moved through the corridors with his team, flashlights cutting through the darkness. They found survivors huddled in a cargo bay, hundreds of aliens of many different species, all of them terrified. They had watched the battle through portholes. They had seen the hegemony ships die. Now these strange creatures in armor were walking toward them. A small alien child, no taller than Minu's knee, stepped forward. It had blue skin and large eyes that reflected the flashlight beam. It looked up at Minu without fear. "Are you here to hurt us?" the child asked. The translator in Minu's helmet converted the alien language to Korean. Minu knelt down slowly. He removed his helmet so the child could see his face. He was a hard man with scars and rough hands, but his eyes were gentle. "No," he said softly. "We are here to help. You are safe now." The child studied his face for a long moment. Then it turned to the other refugees and said something in its own language. The translator picked it up. "They are friends. The strange ones are friends." The refugees began to cry, not from fear but from relief. On the Sovereign, Dr. Lee received a communication request. The signal came from one of the rescued conquered ships. She accepted the call, and a face appeared on her screen. The alien was old. Its skin was pale and wrinkled, and its eyes held the weight of many years. It wore robes of deep blue, and a symbol of office hung around its neck. "I am Counselor of the Galactic Conquered," the alien said. "I wish to speak with your leader." Bowed her head respectfully. "Please wait, Counselor. I will inform my captain." Moments later, Captain stood before the screen. She straightened her uniform and met the alien's gaze directly. "I am Captain Park of the HSS Sovereign. I represent the people of Earth." Studied her with ancient eyes. "Earth, we have never heard of this world. We have never seen your species before. Yet today you saved thousands of lives. You destroyed a fleet that has terrorized the galaxy for centuries. You appeared from nowhere and changed everything." Nodded slowly. "We did not come here looking for a fight, but we could not watch innocent people die." "Why?" asked. The question was simple, but the weight behind it was enormous. "You do not know us. You have no alliance with us. Why would you risk your ship and your crew for strangers?" Thought for a moment before answering. "Where we come from, we have a saying, the measure of a species is not how they treat their friends. It is how they treat strangers in need. Today you were strangers in need. We helped. That is all." Was silent for a long time. On the screen, could see tears forming in the old alien's eyes. "I have lived for 300 years, finally said. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species betray each other for the smallest advantage. But I have never seen what I saw today. A ship from nowhere fighting for people it had never met, asking for nothing in return." The counselor bowed deeply. "Captain Park of Earth, the Galactic Conquered owes you a debt that can never be repaid. Whatever you need, whatever you want, you have only to ask." Smiled slightly. "For now, Counselor, we only want to help. There are wounded people on your ships. Let us save them first. We can talk about debts later." Returned the smile. It was the first time he had smiled in a very long time. "Perhaps," he said softly, "the galaxy has been waiting for your kind. Perhaps you are exactly what we needed." The rescue operations continued through the night. The Sovereign's medical teams worked alongside conquered doctors. Minu's Marines carried wounded aliens to safety, sent engineering teams to repair damaged ships. By morning, every survivor had been saved. And across the galaxy, word began to spread. A new species had arrived. They called themselves humans. They came from a world called Earth. And they had just made the most powerful empire in the galaxy run away in fear. The journey to Harmony Prime took 3 days. The Sovereign traveled alongside the battered, conquered fleet, its massive hull standing guard over the refugee ships like a protective giant. No hegemony vessel appeared to challenge them. Word had spread quickly through the enemy ranks. The humans were not to be attacked, not until the hegemony understood what they were dealing with. Captain Park spent most of the journey in her quarters, reading Dr. Lee's reports on the Galactic Conquered. The information was overwhelming. Over 200 species, thousands of inhabited worlds, a civilization that had existed for millions of years, and humanity had stumbled into it like a child wandering into a gathering of elders. When they finally reached Harmony Prime, Even was stunned. The planet was beautiful beyond description. Oceans of deep blue covered most of its surface, broken by continents of green and gold. Cities floated in the clouds. Orbital stations circled the world like jewels on a necklace. "This is their capital," said quietly, standing beside the captain on the bridge. "The center of the Galactic Conquered. More species live here than we have individual nations on Earth." The Sovereign was directed to a landing platform large enough to hold their entire ship. As they descended through the atmosphere, thousands of aliens stopped to watch. They had never seen anything like the Sovereign. It was huge and brutal and completely unlike the graceful ships of the Conquered. It looked like what it was, a weapon of war built by a species that had learned to fight through centuries of killing each other. A delegation waited on the platform. Counselor stood at the front, wearing formal robes of silver and blue. Beside him was Ambassador, a tall female of a species with skin like polished copper and eyes that changed color with her emotions. Behind them stood representatives of dozens of species, all watching with expressions that ranged from curiosity to fear. Captain walked down the ramp with her senior staff. She had chosen to wear her dress uniform, black fabric with gold trim, medals on her chest, a sword at her hip. It was old-fashioned, but it sent a message. She was a warrior, and she was not ashamed of it. Stepped forward and bowed. "Captain, welcome to Harmony Prime. The Council is eager to meet the saviors of our people." "We are honored to be here," replied, returning the bow. Ambassador's eyes shifted to deep purple. Concern. "The Council chamber is prepared, but I must warn you, Captain, not everyone is pleased by your arrival. Some fear what your presence means for the balance of power in the galaxy." "We understand," said calmly. "We will answer whatever questions the Council has." The Council chamber was enormous. It was a circular room large enough to hold thousands of beings, with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Every species of the Conquered had representatives present. The air hummed with countless translated conversations. When Captain and her staff entered, silence fell like a hammer. They walked to the center platform, stood tall, her hands clasped behind her back, and Minyu flanked her on either side, stood slightly behind, ready to assist with translations and cultural context. Counselor's voice echoed through the chamber. "Honored members of the Galactic Conquered, I present Captain Park of the human vessel Sovereign, representative of the planet Earth." A murmur rippled through the assembly. Earth. They were already searching their databases, looking for any record of this unknown world. They found nothing. Captain continued, "Please tell us about your people." Took a deep breath. She had prepared for this moment, but she knew that nothing she said would be easy to hear. "We are humans," she began. "We come from a planet called Earth, in a system you call Sol. We have been alone in our corner of the galaxy for all of our history. We did not know other intelligent species existed until we developed faster-than-light travel, which happened only recently by your standards." "How recent?" a counselor asked. 15 years ago." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. 15 years. These creatures had gone from planetary isolation to building ships like the Sovereign in 15 years. That should have been impossible. Dr. Lee stepped forward with a data tablet. "With your permission, I will share some information about human history." She activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air, cities, landscapes, achievements, wonders, but also wars, so many wars, trenches filled with dead soldiers, cities reduced to rubble, mushroom clouds rising over devastated lands. "Humans have been fighting each other since before we could write," explained. "We have had thousands of wars, millions of battles. We developed weapons capable of destroying our entire planet and came close to using them several times. The chamber was completely silent now. Every alien was staring at the images with horror. But we also learned, continued. We learned that war without purpose is meaningless. We learned that the only way to survive was to stop fighting each other. Slowly, over centuries, we united. We are not perfect. We still disagree. We still argue, but we no longer try to destroy each other. A counselor from a species with crystalline skin stood up. You show us images of genocide and nuclear devastation, and you expect us to trust you. Your species nearly killed itself multiple times. How can we know you will not do the same to us? Answered before could respond. You cannot know. We can only show you through our actions. 3 days ago, we could have watched your people die. We did not have to help. No one would have blamed us for staying hidden. But we chose to fight for strangers because that is who we want to be. Not who we were, but who we want to become. Counselor nodded slowly. I have met many species in my long life. Some lie with every word. Others speak truth but lack the strength to act. Captain and her people saved thousands of lives at great risk to themselves. They asked for nothing in return. I believe we should judge them by their deeds, not their history. But not everyone agreed. A faction of counselors huddled together in the upper tiers, whispering urgently. They were led by a being named, a representative of a species that had long held power in the conquered. His eyes were cold as he watched the humans. Later that night, while the humans were resting in their assigned quarters, made a call. The signal was encrypted and routed through a dozen relay stations to hide its origin. It reached a hegemony communications officer within the hour. I have information about the human vessel, said. Its current location, its capabilities, its weaknesses. I offer this in exchange for a ceasefire between the hegemony and my people. The hegemony officer smiled. The Admiral will be most interested in this information. What do you want in return? Peace for my world, and the destruction of these humans. They are too dangerous to exist. The deal was struck before dawn. Meanwhile, Engineer could not sleep. She was running diagnostics on the Sovereign's communication systems when she noticed something strange. A signal had bounced off their hull during the night. It was faint, almost invisible, but it was there. She traced its path. Her blood ran cold when she realized where it had gone. She ran to Captain's quarters and pounded on the door. When answered, her hair was messy and her eyes were tired, but she became instantly alert when she saw his face. What is it? Someone in the council contacted the hegemony, said. They sent our location. They sent everything they know about us. His jaw tightened. Can you identify who? Not yet, but Captain, the hegemony knows where we are. They know we are here on the surface. If they attack now, we will not be able to launch in time to defend ourselves. Closed her eyes for a moment. Then she opened them and they were filled with cold fire. Wake the crew, all of them. We are going back to the ship. What about the council? The council has betrayed us, but we did not come here to make friends. We came here to do what is right. If the hegemony wants a fight, we will give them one they will never forget. Within the hour, the Sovereign lifted off from Harmony Prime. Its engines roared as it climbed towards space. And far away, Admiral smiled as he led the full might of the hegemony armada toward his revenge. The sky above Harmony Prime turned dark with ships. They came out of hyperspace in waves, first 100, then 200, then more than anyone could count. The hegemony had gathered every warship they had. Over 1,000 vessels, ranging from small fighters to massive dreadnoughts, filled the space around the peaceful world. It was the largest fleet the galaxy had seen in 1,000 years. Admiral stood on his new flagship, a ship twice the size of his previous command. He had named it Vengeance. The name felt appropriate. Begin the attack, he ordered. Destroy the human ship, then burn the planet. On the surface of Harmony Prime, panic erupted. Millions of civilians ran for shelter. The conquered small defense fleet moved to intercept the hegemony armada, but everyone knew it was hopeless. The defenders were outnumbered 50-1. The Sovereign rose through the atmosphere, its engines burning at maximum power. Captain Park stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display fill with enemy contacts. The numbers were overwhelming. 1,047 enemy vessels confirmed, reported. His voice was steady, but his face was pale. Shields to maximum, all weapon systems online, ordered. Focus fire on the capital ships, ignore the fighters. Minyu entered the bridge, his marine armor already locked in place. "Captain, my soldiers are ready. If they board us, they will regret it." "Let us hope it does not come to that." Turned to Dr. Lee. "Send a message to the council. Tell them we are defending the planet. Tell them to evacuate as many civilians as possible." Nodded and began transmitting. The battle began with fire. Energy beams from 100 hegemony ships struck the Sovereign simultaneously. The shields flared bright white, absorbing energy that would have destroyed any conquered vessel instantly. But the Sovereign was built by humans, and humans built their machines to survive punishment. "Shields holding at 82%, reported from engineering. "They are hitting us hard, but we can take it." "Return fire," commanded. The magnetic accelerators roared. Slugs of solid metal screamed across space and found their targets. Hegemony cruisers exploded. Destroyers broke apart. But for every ship the Sovereign killed, 10 more took its place. Admiral watched with grim satisfaction. "They cannot kill us all. Surround them. Overwhelm them." The Hegemony fleet closed in like a tightening fist. The Sovereign twisted and turned, trying to avoid being surrounded, but there were simply too many enemies. Within minutes, enemy ships filled every direction. "We are taking heavy fire from all sides," shouted. "Shields down to 60%. An explosion rocked the ship. Lights flickered. Somewhere in the lower decks, alarms began to scream. "Hull breach on deck 7, reported. "Sealing emergency bulkheads." Gripped her command chair. They were being overwhelmed. Even the Sovereign could not fight 1,000 ships alone. But she would not surrender. She would not run, not while innocent people were dying below. "All hands," she said into the ship-wide communicator. "This is the captain. Today we face impossible odds. The enemy wants us dead. They want to destroy everything we came here to protect. But we are human. Our ancestors survived ice ages. They survived plagues. They survived wars that should have ended them. We are still here because we never stopped fighting. And we will not stop today." Across the ship, 3,000 humans heard their captain's words. Fear turned to determination. Despair became resolve. "For Earth," someone shouted. The cry spread through every deck. "For Earth!" The Sovereign fought with renewed fury. Its guns fired without pause, coordinated attacks with terrible precision. Minyu's Marines repelled boarders who tried to enter through the hull breaches, kept the engines running through damage that should have crippled the ship. But it was not enough. "Shields at 20%, screamed. "We cannot take much more." Made a decision. She had hoped to never make this choice. She had prayed it would never be necessary. But the universe did not care about prayers. She said quietly, "Activate the Omega Protocol." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The Omega Protocol was humanity's darkest secret. Deep in the Sovereign's core was a device that should never have been built. It was a weapon that manipulated the fabric of space itself, creating a localized distortion that destroyed everything within its radius. It was unstable, unpredictable, and absolutely devastating. Captain hesitated. "If we use it, we may destroy ourselves as well." "I know," his voice did not waver. "But if we fall, Harmony Prime falls with us. Millions will die. We did not come here to let that happen." Nodded slowly, his hands moved to the console. Omega Protocol activating, charging time 90 seconds. On the Vengeance, Admiral sensed something was wrong. The human ship had stopped trying to escape. It was holding position, its weapons still firing, but its movement ceased. "What are they doing?" he demanded. An officer looked up with confusion. "Sir, we are detecting an unknown energy buildup in their core. Power levels are—" "This cannot be right. The readings are off our scale." Felt a chill run down his spine. "All ships concentrate fire, destroy them now." The Hegemony fleet poured everything they had into the Sovereign. The shields collapsed, armor plating vaporized, fire erupted across the hull, on the bridge consoles exploded, fell. Captain was thrown from her chair. She hit the floor hard, feeling something break in her side. Blood ran down her face from a cut on her forehead, but she pulled herself back up, using the captain's chair for support. "Omega charge at 70%, shouted. "Hold course, protect the device." The Vengeance moved directly in front of the Sovereign, blocking any escape route. Wanted to watch these humans die personally. 80%. A massive energy beam from the Vengeance struck the Sovereign's command tower. The entire ship shuddered. Half the bridge crew was killed instantly, was thrown against a wall, his arm broken, but he crawled back to his console. 90%. Looked at the screen, the vengeance filled her view. His face appeared on the communication channel, gloating. "You lose, human," the Admiral said. "Your species will be remembered as a footnote in history." Smiled, it was not a pleasant smile. "You first." 100%, press the button. The universe screamed. A sphere of absolute darkness erupted from the Sovereign's core. It expanded at impossible speed, swallowing everything it touched. The vengeance was consumed instantly. Admiral's final scream cut short before it began. 30 more hegemony ships vanished into the void, crushed by forces that existed beyond normal physics. Then the sphere collapsed, and reality snapped back into place. The Sovereign drifted, crippled and burning, but it was still there. The hegemony fleet stared in horror at the empty space where their flagship had been, where 30 of their ships had been. There was nothing left, not debris, not bodies, nothing. Fear, raw and primal, rippled through the surviving ships. "Fall back," someone screamed on the command frequency. "All ships retreat." The hegemony fled. They ran as fast as their engines could carry them, leaving Harmony Prime behind. They had come to destroy humanity. Instead, they had witnessed something that would haunt their nightmares forever. On the Sovereign's shattered bridge, Captain collapsed. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was Minu's face above her, his lips moving but no sound reaching her ears. She had done it, she had saved them all. But the cost had been terrible. Captain Park woke up 3 days later. She opened her eyes to soft light and the quiet hum of medical machines. The ceiling above her was white and clean. For a moment she did not know where she was, then the memories came flooding back. The battle, the Omega device, the darkness. "Captain," a familiar voice. Dr. Lee was sitting beside her bed, dark circles under her eyes showing she had not slept much. "You are awake. The doctors said you would recover, but we were worried." Tried to speak. Her throat was dry, helped her drink some water. "The ship," managed to ask. "Damaged but alive, has been working without rest. She says the Sovereign will fly again within a week." Smiled slightly. "She also says if you ever put her through something like that again, she will personally throw you out an airlock." Almost laughed, but it hurt too much. "The crew." Smile faded. "We lost 412 people, good people. They died protecting Harmony Prime." 412, closed her eyes. She had known many of them personally. She had eaten meals with them, laughed at their jokes, watched them play cards during long nights between stars. Now they were gone. "We will remember them," she said quietly. "We will, but Captain, there is more news. The Council has been in emergency session since the battle. They found the traitor. It was a counselor named. He contacted the hegemony and gave them our location." "What happened to him?" "He has been stripped of his position and will face trial. But more importantly, his actions have changed the Council's opinion of humanity. Many who feared us before now see us differently. We could have fled when we learned of the betrayal. Instead, we stayed to protect the planet. We nearly died for people who had just betrayed us." Opened her eyes again. "What does that mean for us?" His expression brightened. "The Council has voted. They want to offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Concord, not as a junior partner or a protected species, but as equals." For the first time in days, felt hope. Later that week, when was strong enough to walk, she attended the council session. She wore her dress uniform again, though now it covered bandages and healing wounds. Minu walked beside her, his own arm in a sling, followed, limping slightly but alive. Had refused to leave the ship, saying someone needed to keep it from falling apart. The council chamber was full. Every species was represented, but the atmosphere was different now. Before, many had looked at the humans with suspicion and fear. Now there was something else in their eyes, respect, and something close to awe. Counselor stood at the central platform. He looked older than before, as if the events of the past week had aged him years. "Captain Park," he began, his voice echoing through the chamber, "and the crew of the Sovereign. You came to us as strangers. You found us at war, and you chose to help when you could have remained hidden. When some of our own people betrayed you, you did not seek revenge. Instead, you defended the innocent at terrible cost to yourselves." He paused, his ancient eyes glistening. "The Galactic Concord has existed for millions of years. In all that time, we have rarely seen such courage, such selflessness. Today, we are honored to invite humanity to join us, not as guests or visitors, but as full members of our community. Your voice will be equal to any other. Your vote will carry the same weight. Stepped forward, she looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces watching her. Some she had helped rescue. Others had feared her just days ago. All were waiting to hear what she would say. Thank you, Counselor. Thank you to every species represented here today. My people are young compared to most of you. Our history is full of mistakes, violence, and pain. We are not proud of everything we have done, but we have learned from our past. We have learned that strength means nothing without compassion, that victory is hollow without justice, that the measure of any species is not how they treat their friends, but how they treat strangers in need. She straightened her shoulders despite the pain. Humanity accepts your invitation. We will stand with the conquered. We will protect the innocent. We will fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. And we will never forget the trust you are placing in us today. The chamber erupted in applause. Representatives from dozens of species stood and cheered. Some wept. Others simply nodded with quiet approval. The ceremony continued with formal agreements and treaties. Dr. Lee handled most of the negotiations, her sharp mind finding solutions that satisfied everyone. When it was over, humanity was officially part of something larger than Earth had ever imagined. A week later, the hegemony sent envoys to Harmony Prime. They came in a single, unarmed ship, their previous arrogance replaced by visible fear. They requested an audience with the human captain. Captain met them in a private chamber. The hegemony representatives were military officers, their scales dull with stress, their eyes unable to meet hers. "We come to request peace," their leader said. "The war between the hegemony and the conquered can end today if you agree." "Why should we agree?" asked. "Your people have conquered thousands of worlds. You have killed billions of innocent beings." "Because we have seen what you can do," the officer's voice trembled. "The weapon you used, we have analyzed the footage. You created a hole in reality itself. You made our ship simply stop existing. We cannot fight something like that. No one can." Was quiet for a long moment. "You want us to promise never to use it again?" "Yes, in exchange, the hegemony will withdraw from all conquered territory. We will release all prisoners. We will pay reparations to every species we have wronged. We only ask that you never use that weapon on us." Thought about Admiral, about the 30 ships that had vanished into darkness, about the power that humans had created and the responsibility that came with it. "I will agree to your terms," she said finally. "But understand this. We did not build that weapon because we wanted to use it. We built it because we know what it means to face extinction. We have looked into the void and seen our own death. That weapon is our promise to ourselves that we will survive no matter what." She leaned forward, her eyes hard. "If you or anyone else ever threatens innocent lives again, we will do what we have always done. Whatever is necessary, do you understand?" The hegemony officer nodded quickly. "We understand, we will not forget." The peace treaty was signed the next day. 1 month later, the Sovereign was finally repaired. The hull had been rebuilt with a combination of human and alien technology. New systems had been installed. The ship was stronger than ever before. But it was no longer alone. Captain stood on the observation deck, watching through the massive windows. Behind the Sovereign, dozens of ships were appearing from hyperspace. Human ships. Earth had sent its first diplomatic fleet. Scientists, doctors, teachers, engineers, families. They had come to build a new future among the stars. Minyu stood beside her. "Never thought I would see this," he said quietly. "Humans spreading across the galaxy, meeting new species, building instead of destroying." Smiled. "It is what we should have been doing all along." On the surface of Harmony Prime, a young alien child stood with her mother, watching the new lights appear in the sky. She was the same child who had first approached Sergeant Minyu on the refugee ship. She had not forgotten the human who showed her kindness. "Mother," she asked, pointing at the growing number of ships, "what are those lights?" Her mother looked up, her expression soft with wonder. "Those are the humans, little one. They are here to stay." The child smiled and waved at the distant ships. Far above, Captain Park could not see the wave, but somehow she felt it. The galaxy had trembled when humanity's battleship arrived, but it would not tremble forever. Humanity had come not to conquer, but to heal, not to destroy, but to build. They had fought their way to the stars. Now it was time to earn their place among them. And somewhere in the vast darkness between galaxies, other civilizations were just beginning to hear the stories. Stories of a ship from nowhere that saved strangers. Stories of a species born in violence that chose peace. Stories of creatures called humans who would fight for anyone who needed help. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what humanity had hoped for.